friends, welcome to this week's Kids Church at Home. This week's theme is all about decision making. How do you make those really tough decisions in life? We're going to figure that out and find out how some people in the past have made decisions, and maybe we'll find a new way to make decisions too. Our shout out this week goes to Spencer and to Jackson. Thanks for spending this time with us. So let's get into the story that we're going to share about decision making. This week's story is a story from a long time ago, and it's about Jesus' friends who are called the apostles. This story takes place after Jesus' death, and the apostles, Jesus' friends, or really his team of ministers, are trying to figure out and make decisions about how they will go forward and continue Jesus' ministry. But before they start, they have to fill out their team. They have to choose one more person to join the team. So here's the story of how they did that. Peter was feeling impatient. Jesus told the disciples to wait in Jerusalem for something new, and here they were, waiting and praying. But waiting was hard. Peter liked being quick to respond. He liked being first, the first to declare Jesus was the Son of God, the first to try walking on water, and now he wanted to be the first to tell people that Jesus was alive in a new way. We need to get organized. Name someone to replace Judas, Peter thought. We need 12 disciples to represent the 12 tribes of Israel. Peter hesitated. Jesus had chosen Judas, so how would they choose his replacement? It could not just be anyone. So Peter made a list. He stood up and shared his announcement. The person who will join us has to be someone who's been with us during all the time that Jesus went in and out among us, beginning from the baptism of John until the day he was taken from us. They have to be someone who's willing to become a witness with us to Jesus' resurrection. After much conversation, 2 names were suggested: Joseph, also known as Justus, or Matthias. How could they choose between them? How would they know which one God would choose? Peter discussed the situation with the others, and they decided God would show them. They would pray, and then they would cast lots. They prayed, God, you know everyone's heart. Show us which one of these 2 you have chosen to take the place in this ministry. Nobody knows exactly how they cast lots, but maybe they rolled a dice or pulled straws. Either way, it happened that the lot fell on Matthias, and he was the one chosen to be an apostle, believing fully that that was God's wish for Matthias to join the team. Well, I wonder, is that how you expected the apostles to choose a member of the team to carry on Jesus' ministry? To cast lots, to throw a dice or pull straws? How would you have made that decision? I'm curious, how do you make other decisions that are really hard? What I noticed is they made a list of all the things that were important, and they eliminated all kinds of people, but then they came up with 2 at the end who were equally good. They filled out all the requirements. And so how do you make that decision between 2 things that are equally good? Sometimes we have to choose between 2 things that are equally bad. And it's really hard once we've gone through the process of figuring out everything that we need and we're left with 2. So the apostles left it in God's hands. They prayed about it, and then they believed that by casting lots, by throwing a dice or leaving it to chance, no matter what, God would be behind who was chosen. In truth, both people fit all the lists. And so at that point, it was time to hand the decision over to God. The apostles had done everything they could to make the right decision, and now, through prayer, they invited God into that decision. I imagine that might be hard sometimes. It takes courage sometimes to say, I've done all the thinking I can on this decision, and now I have to hand it over to God. I can't make the final decision. I'm going to let God make the final decision. Wow, that's hard to do. I think I know that I like to be in control of my choices. But it's true, there are times when the choices are beyond me, and I have to let go, and I have to let the decisions be as they will be. So I wonder, how do you do that? What do you do when you have to let go of the decision and let it be? So I thought for today we would do a little bit of a science experiment and a little bit of a prayer and a little bit of demonstrating letting go. So why don't you join me? What I have gathered for today is some paper. I have some washable markers, and I want washable because I'm going to add some water, and so I want the colors to be able to run. So that's why I've chosen washable. If you don't want the colors to run, you could use crayons, and then the crayon will not move at all. In fact, you could try both. Since we're doing a science experiment, you could try it with a washable marker, and you could try it with a crayon, and see how they're different. We also need some scissors because we're going to cut our paper into a shape. And the most important part of our science experiment is a flat tray with some water in it. So you might also want a towel because sometimes water spills, but we're going to grab a flat tray, nice and open, and put some water in it, and then we can use that as our science experiment. Well, the first part of our science experiment, we're going to take a prayer, we're going to write it on our piece of paper. So think maybe about a prayer for the world, think maybe about a choice that you have to make, think maybe about something you're struggling with inside and wondering about. Let's think about something, and you can use this prayer with words, or you could use pictures for this prayer. So when you have that in mind, let's figure out what to do with that prayer. So you'll see here I have my paper cut into squares, and I'm going to create two different shapes. I'm going to have one that's just a regular square, and I'm going to have one that is a flower. So let's start with the square. The square is simple. We take the square, and then we're going to fold it into a triangle like so. And fold it into a triangle like so, and then unfold it. And that's going to create two lines that will tell us where the middle of our square is. Now we're going to fold the corners in. Fold one corner, two corners, three corners, and four. And now this shape is all ready to go. Our second shape is more of a flower shape. For this one, we're going to start with a square as well, but this time we're going to fold it in half upwards. And then we're going to fold it in half so it becomes a square. And now we're going to fold it in half again, but this time we're going to fold it corner to corner so it becomes a triangle. And now I want to cut the petal shape into our triangle. So I'm going to find the corner, that's the folded corner with all the folds. I'm not going to cut that one. I'm going to cut the corner that isn't folded off. So I'm going to cut just a curve around here to create a petal. So there's my shape. Kind of looks like an ice cream cone. Now when I unfold it, I have a flower. Now to help me with this flower, because I want to be able to fold the petals down, so I need to make some little cuts on each of these folds all the way around to allow my petal to fold inwards. So about not quite halfway. I'm going to make a cut on the fold just about halfway, all the way around. Now, each one of those is cut, and I'm going to start on the first one, and I'm going to fold my petal, just the top of the petal meets the middle of the flowers, and then I'm going to do the next one and go all the way around. And there we go. So now I have a folded square, kind of a diamond, and I have a folded in flower. These are the shapes that we're going to put our prayers into. So I'm going to open this up now, and in that inside section, the flat unfolded part, that's where I can put my prayer. So I'm going to write it in or color it in, and I'm going to add those in there now. Okay, here are my two prayers. One is a prayer with just a heart. My other is a prayer that says, keeping loved ones safe. So remember, our prayers, we do as much as we can to get there and to do the thing that we're praying for. And then we have to let go and let God be part of that. So I know that I can do as much as I can to keep the loved ones around me safe. But at some point, I also have to have courage and allow life to be. So these are my two prayers. Now I'm going to fold up my prayers. And as I fold them up, I imagine I'm folding them up and they're nice and tight, and I'm handing them to God and saying, God, these prayers are so important to me. And I wrap them up for you, God. And now comes our science experiment. So let's bring our water over. And what happens when we wrap our prayers up so tight in our worry, and then with courage, we have to hand them off to God. And so let's hand these off and float our prayers on our water. How about that? Do you see that? What's happening to our prayer? We wrapped it all tight. It was so tightly folded. And now we hand it off. And we allow that prayer to take on its own life, to open in God's energy and love. With courage, we release that prayer, we let it go, and we let it be. Isn't that neat how the water just makes our folds open up like that? Well, there is our prayer. Our prayer, after having held it so tight and folded it so tight, with courage, we released it onto the water, and it's opened, and we've released it in faith and trust into God's love and life. Well, I hope that you will have an opportunity, one, to play with water, because playing with water is fun, and watching the water make that paper open like that is really, really neat. But it also is meant to remind us that sometimes those choices and those decisions and those worries we hold so deep in us, and we fold so tight inside of us, sometimes we need the courage to let them go. And so this is a demonstration. We can see what it's like to just let it go and let God take over what we are holding so tight in us. And maybe God can help us to open it up to the world and to let life and energy and new ideas into that. I wonder, what would it be like if you folded a big piece of newspaper with a big prayer on it, and you folded it and then you put it on a creek or on a pond and watch that open? Make sure that if you do that, you pick up the prayer afterwards so you don't leave it out in nature to litter. But this week, as we come to spring, as we see the buds on the trees do exactly that, go from tight, tight, tight to having the courage to open to the sun and to a new season of growing, may you have the courage to let go of some of your decisions, some of your choices, some of your worries. Trust that the adults in your life can help you with them. Trust all the thinking that you put into those decisions, and then have the courage to give them over in prayer, to allow God to open up that tight fold and maybe find a new way forward. Well, my friends, as we journey through this season, through all of the choices that we have to make, let us bless each other into those choices. May there be love in your heart to give. May there be joy in your heart to share. And may there be strength in your heart to lift others up. See ya.